Welcome to Al Bernstein Unplugged Unboxing. In a 40-year Hall of Fame career, Al has chronicled some of the greatest moments in boxing history. On this podcast, you get to hear him expand on those memories and talk about the current news in the sport of boxing. You also hear Al interview some of the biggest names in the sport. Here's Al Bernstein Unplugged.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. Delighted you could join us. On this episode, we're going to be visiting with Regis Prograis, who, of course, is a former 140-pound champion and currently a top 140-pound contender in the world of boxing. And he's going to be fighting on April 17th on the Triller Fight Club debut card, which will be a pay-per-view from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. I'll be working on that broadcast, and it should be a lot of fun. Our friend Snoop Dogg is a co-creator of that series, along with the Triller Company, and it should be an entertaining evening of boxing, to be sure. And Regis Prograis will be fighting Ivan Redkach on that card. And by the way, to get any information on that card, I urge you to go to TrillerFightClub.com. That's TrillerFightClub.com, and you can find out how to order it and see some videos. You can also check out the press conference that announced that event, which I hosted. We had some fun interaction with all the different participants, that's for sure. And we're going to be chatting with Regis a little bit later. Now I'm going to bring in another colorful gentleman who's got a nice tan from his trip to Cancun, my good friend Trip Mitchell. Hi, Trip.
Hey, Al, thanks for letting me use the corporate jet to fly down there. It was very appreciated by our whole group. You're a very nice guy.
It's always available to you, and I know you left it impeccably clean for everybody afterwards.
We did, and I'm excited you're going to be calling this fight from the Mercedes Center. Earlier in my career, I did a show from the Yugo Center. Is that a bad sign? That might be a second-rate building.
Yeah, Yugo not quite as good as the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I don't think so.
Okay. Well, we have got some great questions, and why don't we get to them?
All righty.
And from the Philly injury lawyer, I wonder what profession he's
interesting.
in. Is Boots Ennis as good as Philly knows he is? Is he on the way to being the next great Philly champ?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. Of course, we are going to have Boots Ennis, Jaron Ennis, taking on Sergey Lipinets on April 10th on Showtime. And it's going to be a very interesting fight. It's certainly a step up for Jaron Ennis. Now, Ennis is a all-out action fighter. He has got some of the best hand speed in the sport of boxing. He is undefeated and has never even been tested. And his combinations are dazzling. He is one of those fighters that you walk away and say, oh my, is he going to be able to do this against the upper echelon in the welterweight division? He says yes, so do his people. And by the way, Boots Ennis is going to join us as a guest after this April 10th fight. So we'll get to talk to him after what he hopes will be a victory. Now, the man he's facing, Sergey Lipinets, was a top 140-pounder, fought Mikey Garcia for a championship, and was exceptional in that fight, even in losing. He's coming in off a draw in his last fight, which was also on Showtime. And Sergey is taking this fight to show that he is one of the top people in the welterweight division, and they are willing to take on his challenge of Boots Ennis. Not everyone has been willing to do that. Lipinets is trained by Joe Goosen, one of the top trainers in the sport of boxing, and he is a fighter who brings a lot to the dance with Boots Ennis. So I'll be able to call that fight, as I said, on April 10th. It's on Showtime Championship Boxing on Showtime, and I hope all of you will be tuning in. That should be a lot of fun.
And it's funny how our gentleman who wrote the question talks about the great line of Philly fighters, and there have been a ton, and that would be a fun question in future episodes to have you rate maybe the top 5 of all time.
Yeah, he mentions a couple like J. Rock Williams, who we had as a guest on this show, and there are many, and going all the way back to Joe Frazier, of course, and before that. So yeah, that'd be a good show to do, actually, zero in on all those Philadelphia champions like Bernard Hopkins and the like. Just pretty amazing.
Great. And then we've got another really kind of a fun question. And this comes from Kenneth Lundgren. And he asks, you have a lot of perks in your job. What are your two favorite parts of what you do? The two things that really stand out? And I think this is a great question.
Yeah, that is an interesting question. Listen, I'm privileged to be able to do what I'm doing. A producer many years ago said that television is, it's like all of us making our living playing with toys. I mean, we get to do things that are hard work. They're not easy, but they're fun. And for me, one of the perks, and I know this is going to maybe sound like I'm playing up to the men I cover, but one of the perks is simply being able to talk to all these great boxers. You wouldn't otherwise have this access to them. And I've said this, many, many times before. Boxers are by far, for me, and I've covered, athletes in all major sports during my career, especially when I was at ESPN working for SportsCenter and doing coverage. Boxers are by far the most fun guys to cover, and the easiest to interview, and the most cooperative. And the biggest perk for me is being able to know people like we've interviewed on this show, Lennox Lewis and Larry Holmes and Andre Ward, and I could go on and on. Boxers are special people, and being able to know them, I think, is a great thing. And the other perk, I'm going to tell you the other perk. The other perk is I've had some of the greatest dinners before fights, a night or two before fights, with some of the most fascinating people that I could ever imagine having dinner with. And when you're on the road, Barry Tompkins says this all the time. He said he's doing this just so he can go to the dinners beforehand. So that's my other perk that I love the most.
Well, it's interesting, and you've told this story before. When you did the Olympics down, I believe, in Barcelona for NBC, you got to know two of the greatest Utahns where I abide.
Oh, yeah.
Are John Stockton and Karl Malone, because as a broadcaster, you move in those circles. So it's probably fun to meet celebrities and to other great athletes outside boxing.
It is. In Barcelona, we did the boxing. The venue was right next to where the Dream Team was playing in 1992. And they would all come over to see the boxing. And yes, that was where I got to really know Karl Malone and John Stockton. And they came over. It's also a part of a dinner thing because they had dinner at our venue. They'd eat with us, and it was just wonderful to get to know them. And you're right, that's the other perk. I guess that would be a third perk that I probably didn't mention, and that is getting to meet people that you wouldn't otherwise meet. I mean, I told the story of when on this show when I did a Showtime movie.
Was it the
movie? And I was around, and Elaine Stritch, a great Broadway actress, was in the movie, and she didn't know who the heck I was. She wasn't a boxing fan, but I was there, and she said, "So I hear you're a famous boxing announcer." I said, "Yes," and I'm in awe, right, of meeting Elaine Stritch. And she said, "That's interesting." So we started to chat, and of course, I used the opportunity to ask her 1,000 things about theater. And I would have probably never met Elaine Stritch if not for, that. So it's intriguing, to say the least. Now, our guest on this show is a gentleman who, as I mentioned, is fighting on April 17th. He is a terrific fighter and a great guy, and who had the 140-pound championship, lost it in a very close decision to Josh Taylor, one that could have easily gone to him. And he is fighting on April 17th against Ivan Redkach on the Triller Fight Club card. And here's our chat with Regis Prograis. So, Regis, you are back in action only 6 months after your last fight, your win over Juan Heraldez, when you are, I believe, the first one to stop him. I was happy to announce that fight, as I will your fight on April 17th. And in the COVID age, a 6-month layoff is not really that large, is it?
Not long at all. Actually, 5 months. So it's not.
Is it 5? Well, there you go.
Actually, 5 months. So it's a good thing, man. I'm staying busy, and I'm glad. I'm glad I'm staying busy.
Yeah, that's for sure. Now your fight on April 17th with Ivan Redkach. is an interesting fight on a couple different levels. One, it's two left-handers, which we don't always see, and it's a fight in which I know you want to further market yourself, even though you're a former world champion and you're at the top of your game at 140. I know this fight is a lot about reaching out to people to remind them that, hey, I'm here and I should be getting a world title shot.
Exactly. You know, I mean, for me, my whole thing is like been marketing. You know, that's been my whole, I think, downfall. Not saying downfall, but it's like always, you know, I was a world champion already. You know, that's the highest you can go. You know, I was a undefeated world champion, you know, with some of the highest knockout percentage. And, you know, most people didn't even know who I was, you know. So like now, this, you know, I need to get more exposure because I know what I am. I'm very low reward, high risk. You know, that's why a lot of people don't want to fight me. You know, like the big names, the Broner, the you know, those type of names, they wouldn't want to fight me. You know, and I wouldn't. Of course, I would have never ever got a shot if it wasn't for the tournament. Basically, you know, I would never got that. Wasn't for that tournament. So, you know, that's why I entered into the tournament because I know what I am. You know, I'm, like I said, I'm too high up a risk with little reward. So for this fight is the perfect thing for me, you know, because it's exposure. And this is something, you know, that I definitely need. I need more exposure.
Now, will this fight be at 140? Is that the weight?
It's at 140, 142. So yeah,
okay,
basically.
so pretty much close to 140.
But yeah, 140.
And you were in that World Series tournament of boxing that you're talking about, and that's how you won your title. And then you had that very, very close split decision loss to Josh Taylor, which could have gone either way. And now you find yourself fighting on a very unique card on April 17th. It's really intriguing. It's a different kind of event, but as you say, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs seeing you because the boxing purists and all the folks involved in the sport know how good you are, but maybe not everybody else.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying, man. It's a whole different world out there right now. That this whole YouTube thing and this whole Triller thing it's a whole different world like that, and it's a different market. You know, somebody the other day asked me about. They were saying they were saying that if is it better to have, because they were saying the old school boxing fan is like the older white guy and these YouTubers are like the young kids. And it's not switching it, it's adding, you know. For me, it's not, you know, you're not switching the already the boxing fans. You add, you can add to the kids. And I was at the fight with his brother Logan Paul and KSI in Staples Center in LA. And man, it was kids running around. I mean, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, not with their parents, they running around. And then you have, you know, the real boxing fan, like the people that really want to see the boxing. So you have a combined audience. And I mean, I think this is, you know, I think this, I mean, it's a good idea.
Yeah, and it takes, as you point out, it takes nothing away from boxing. It doesn't diminish anything, and gives another platform. You are, with all the talk of the new things going on, people think of you in some senses, quote unquote, old school for all the proper reasons, not for any of the bad reasons. And one of the things about that is, one of the things that leads people to say that about you is the level of opposition that you fight. Now, your last 7 opponents have a combined record of 162 wins and 4 losses, which is really pretty extraordinary. Fighting that tough competition, does that make you a better fighter? Is that maybe part of the reason why you feel like you are, you know,
of course, man. Listen, my idols was, you know, like I'm a historian, you know. I know, of course,
yes,
I know all about. I actually have your book in my bookshelf right now, you know. So I'm a historian, man. I know about the sport, and I go all the way to, you know, like the Joe Gans and Joe Louis and Henry Armstrong and, you know, Joe, you know, all those people, man. I can name, of course, I can just keep naming, but we're not on there right now. So
I got you.
They just fought, and they fought good opposition, and that's what I want to do. I want to fight good opposition right now. These days, it's more it irks my nerve because now it's more of a business thing. It's more of a popularity contest, than who is a good fighter, who is the better fighter, but it's a popularity contest. You have a lot of guys out there, they haven't really done anything, but they're really popular. And you can't tell these new fans how good they are because they're so popular. It's a popularity contest. So for me, with this platform, I think I will get both. I will get the popular vote and from the real boxing people, they know, for me, I'll fight anybody. And I don't just say that. Like a lot of people say, I'll fight anybody. But then when you say a name, they probably, they hide and stuff like that. With me, I say I'll fight anybody. I would really fight, anybody in my weight class.
Well, you've demonstrated that you are fighting and are happy to fight the best at 140 pounds now. And one of the names that, keeps recurring, though it appears he isn't that keen on fighting you, was the possibility of you fighting Adrien Broner, who, of course, has yet to get down to 140 in recent times. In his last fight that I announced, he was at 146, I believe. But that's maybe an example of what you're talking about. Adrien Broner is well known, certainly, even though in recent years his won and loss record hasn't been dramatically good. Is there still a good possibility that you may fight Adrien Broner?
I mean, I want to, to be honest, I want to. I think that's a huge name. That's on my resume. And man, I think I blow Adrien Broner out the water. I'm not gonna lie. I think I will blow him all the way out the water. I'm talking about if, I'm not even say that I'll knock him out. I don't know if I'll knock him out or nothing like that, but because he is tough, he's never been knocked out. He fought Pacquiao.
Hard to knock out.
Knockout, but I definitely think beat him every round, definitely beat him every round. And, his last fight definitely didn't look too good to me. That dude he fought, man, that dude wouldn't last 5 minutes in the ring with me. I'm talking about 5 minutes, he wouldn't last in the ring. So it's like, I definitely do still want that, I still want that name because like I said, he has the name recognition, and who else, for me, I look up to Adrien Broner a little bit as far as on the popularity side, because who else can do that? Who else in the world right now can lose all those fights and still have this big name, still could demand this big money? Nobody else can do that except him right now. He's the only one that can really do that. Usually in boxing, you lose all those fights, like you're gone, you're out the window. But he still can demand all that money. You definitely got to respect him for that. So for me, yeah, man, that still is a name that, I want, I definitely want that, one name one day, but I feel like I would have to build my profile up more. And this right here is the perfect opportunity to do it.
Yeah. And of course, I'm assuming also now there's talk of Josh Taylor fighting Jose Ramirez and they would unify the title. I would assume you would really be keen on fighting the winner of that contest. If in fact they do fight each other, it would be a rematch with Taylor, which was a terrific fight. And again, could have gone either way. So whoever would win that, I would think you would want to fight them for the championship.
Yeah, of course, man. But you know how boxing is, with the whole business side of things, they call it on the other side of the street, they were top ranked, so of course, right. Honestly, man, I don't call for the Josh Taylor. I want the Josh Taylor rematch, of course, whenever I can get it, but I just don't call for it because I know it's a waste of breath. I know most likely it won't happen. Josh Taylor doesn't want to come anywhere close to me. I know that. I know that. If I was him, I wouldn't come nowhere close to me. Because it was, it's disputed. It could have went my way. It could have went his way. I think that if we was in here, if we was in this country, I definitely would have got the decision. And it was a real close fight. So right now, I think that he's gonna go and fight Ramirez, and then after that, maybe move up and fight Crawford. Whoever wins, probably, I think that'll be the plan, to move up and fight Terrence Crawford. So,
which would leave a world title open for you to go after.
Basically, yeah. Now that's what I'm saying. In boxing, you never know how the landscape is gonna play out. I do want to be a champion again at 140. And, if it happens like that, then it'll happen like that. But, we'll see. I can't tell, man. I never thought I'd be fighting Ivan Radcatch. It's crazy. I never thought I'd be fighting him. He actually kind of a friend of mine, and now we got to fight. So,
yeah, that's true. You know him. And of course, he's gone up a couple weight classes, and he's a very tough-nosed guy. He fought Danny Garcia in his last fight and went the distance with him. And in a way, be an interesting comparison to see if you can stop him in this fight.
Right, exactly. That's why. That's why I think that most of the boxing fans, they're gonna be looking for. They're gonna be looking for me to make a statement. And that's what I plan on doing. I'm not the great Ali. So I can't predict which round or nothing like that. But
Right.
what I want to do is definitely I want to go out there and make a statement, make a huge statement. Just and this is the perfect. I think this is the perfect card for that to make a statement.
Yeah, no question about that. Now you mentioned that you love the history of boxing, and of course, a few days ago, no, not recently, a few weeks ago, Marvin Hagler died. A good friend of mine and somebody whose many of his fights I announced, and I know you have a big, huge amount of respect and admiration for Marvin, and loved his career.
Right, of course, man. Marvin Hagler's the man, man. I mean, Marvin Hagler was somebody that, like, he's your favorite fighter. Like all these,
right.
You look at like Holyfield and them, and he was like, "Who's my favorite fighter?" Marvin Hagler's my favorite fighter. Like that's Marvin Hagler. If you just a boxing fan, you have to respect Hagler, man, because he just got it out the mud the hard way, and he had that chip on his shoulder, And of course, me, I'm a southpaw, so of course I have to love. I studied Hagler for years and years and years, man. I just, you just got I got to meet him. That was one of my goals, is to meet these legends. And, that's somebody that I met, of course. So I'm definitely happy that I got to meet, Hagler.
Yeah, great man and a great boxer for sure, and a big loss for boxing and for the world. So on April 17th, you're in there against Ivan Redkach in a very unique event. When you're there, here's my question to you. Now, are you the music part of the show? It's kind of fascinating. And of course, we saw glimpses of this with Tyson Holyfield, and Triller did a very good job of merging boxing and music. Does that seem like a kind of a fun idea to you?
Definitely fun. It's definitely a fun idea, man. Listen, I have a street team in New Orleans, right? And like a marketing team in New Orleans. So my fight, I fought in July over there on ESPN for the Top Rank thing, and they want to do the same thing. This is like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. They want the same thing, but of course, Top Rank and the Louisiana Commission, they shut it all down. They're like, man, we need to do this, and now Triller's doing it, and it's like, I think it's a good idea because it's an event now. It's not just boxing. It's an event now. You don't have that in boxing. You don't have events in boxing unless it's Pacquiao, Canelo, Floyd. Right. You have those type of fighters. Andy Joshua. When those type of fighters they fight, that's when it's an event. But most of the boxing, people just don't care about. Unless they're like hardcore fans. But now, when you put in the music and you put all this different entertainment in it, you have a whole event. And I mean, I honestly love the idea about it.
It's fun, and gosh knows they're going to have Justin Bieber's going to be there, Snoop Dogg with Ice Cube and a new group called Mount Westmore, a super group of hip hop performers. So it's going to be top notch, and that group knows how to put on that kind of entertainment and merging it with the boxing. So it's going to be fascinating. Well, I'm looking forward to calling your fight with Ivan Redkach, and I wish you the best of luck, Regis.
All right, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
So that was my chat with Regis Prograis, who, as you can see, is a really delightful guy, and he kind of relishes the moment of fighting on his Triller card because as he explained, he sees the advantage of this wider audience that he may not have reached as a boxer that's not just a hardcore boxing fan, and how that may help him in terms of kind of pushing his agenda to be a world champion and get a world title fight. So we'll see how that plays out for him. I know we've got some other folks that have questions, huh?
So Peter D. wrote in, "Hi, Mr. Bernstein." By the way, that's very nice, classy.
Yeah, I like that. Nobody calls me that.
Okay. Have you ever been pulled up by fighters over things you've said in commentary? Have they been unhappy with you?
Well, let's see. Has there ever been a fighter? Oh, yeah, that one guy from Cincinnati didn't like me, right? My friend Adrien Broner. All right, we'll just skip past Adrien Broner because we've dealt with that plenty. Beyond him, and he counts for 5, I think. You know, in all the years that I've been doing this, I'm going to say there have been only a couple of instances where boxers really took serious issue with commentary or were really distressed with me. For some reason, many years ago, Bruce Seldon, who was a heavyweight who fought for the heavyweight title at one point, he was on our ESPN Top Rank cards a lot from Atlantic City, and he just apparently didn't like the way I was commentating on his fights. And we were in one of the fighter meetings, and he expressed himself quite candidly about it. And I wasn't that far into my career. I was only about a year and a half in. And it really shook me a little bit because I thought, oh my, am I really doing that great a disservice to him? And I looked back on video because I didn't want to take it lightly. And, you know, I said, well, you know, I thought I was okay, but he obviously didn't perceive it that way. And the other fighter that wasn't so keen on my commentary, a former 168-pound fighter, Jeff Lacey, who was a champion and a terrific offensive fighter, but I commented a couple times as he was defending his title that I thought while he was great offensively, there might be some defensive liabilities that might hurt him down the road. I thought I was pretty gentle in making those comments, but he didn't. And he was distressed at a couple of our fighter meetings with me. I don't know if I was his favorite. Unfortunately for him, those defensive liabilities did come back to haunt him later in his career, especially against Joe Calzaghe. But those are really the only two incidents, other than Broner going off on that press conference, that I can think of that fighters that were truly, truly distressed. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody didn't like what I said about him or somebody was annoyed, and I did have one fight manager that was distressed with me one time, but in general, not really very much of it.
Well, and you are a very positive person, but some of your cohorts in the business have decided that by going negative, they get more publicity and it could help their career.
Yeah.
We won't name names.
Yeah, no, you're right. And also part of it is, I think the reason that is, and that's why I specify, it's not to say that somebody probably didn't disagree with me and think I was wrong in the commentary I made about them. But because my commentary about them is never personal, it's, you know, I would never attack them personally. And because the way I present it is not as harsh as some, I don't think they're, you know, but you're right. There are many commentators who go more negative because they feel like it'll get them more attention.
Yeah, and some of those commentators make lots of money. But
some of them do, yeah.
So Patrick asks, and this is great because this is going to tie into something you're going to talk about, but Al, could you tell us about the night you performed at the old Olympic Lounge at Caesars on April 6th, 1987?
Yeah, that was an intriguing evening because it was the first of a series of performances that I did before big fights. That was before the Marvin Hagler Sugar Ray Leonard fight, which is having an anniversary coming up, and we're going to be visiting with Brian Dugan, who is the author of a book called Super Fight about that fight on our next show. And you know, that was an exciting evening for me because we did 3 nights leading up to that fight that weekend in April. And, you know, there was a lot of publicity about me doing it. I had never done it in Las Vegas before, though I'd done some music in Chicago. And the origin of it was the president of Caesar's Palace and I were having dinner with a few other people. And previous to that, Barry McGuigan's dad who was a pub singer in Ireland, had done 3 nights at the Olympic Lounge leading up to Barry McGuigan's fight. And it was successful. It was a fun gathering place for all the people. And the president of Caesars looked at me and he said, "Don't you do music?" I used to sit in with a lot of music people in Vegas and perform with them. He said, "Don't you do music?" I said, "Yeah, I enjoy it." He said, "Well, you're going to do the 3 nights leading up to Leonard Hagler for us at the Olympic Lounge, just like Barry McGuigan's dad did." I said, "Oh, okay." Well, I didn't have an act. I didn't have anything. So I had like 3.5 months to prepare for this. And I did. I got myself, you know, a gentleman to produce the shows and everything. And And I did that night. It was, I did 3 nights actually. And it was daunting to come out on stage and look out at the people in the audience because everybody was there for that fight. It was a who's who of, you know, people. I mean, this table over here, there's Gil Clancy and Tommy Hearns and Bob Arum. Over here is Victor French and Michael Landon from that show that they were on. Here's John Madden and a bunch of people over here. And it was just a star-studded group. And I'm walking out for the first song and I'm thinking, what did I get myself into here? You know, but it worked out well. And I did the 3 nights. And then I subsequently did a number of other engagements there as well before the big fights because it was fun.
Yeah.
So,
did you wear a tux?
I did wear a tux. Yeah, that's a good question. I did. Yeah, because it was kind of the fashion of the big fights. So I did wear a tux for it, which is interesting. I probably, very seldom have I worn tuxes performing, actually, even though I wore them a lot for shows. So anyway, that was a fun evening for me. It was nice of that gentleman to ask about it. And it was a memorable weekend. And as I said, we're going to be visiting with Brian Dugan, who wrote this great book about those fights. Now, we want to mention to you that one of our partners, Tom Yankello, who's got his fine world-class boxing channel on YouTube, that channel is a great watch. You'll see great videos that tell you about the sport. Not only they're not only informational and teaching items for amateur fighters, but they also tell you a lot overall about how different styles of fighters have fought, and you'll learn something by going to take a look at that channel. Well, I mentioned Brian Dugan's going to be with us, and we're also going to have Ben Askren on in our next show, who is fighting also on April 17th on that Triller Fight Club card. He's the former mixed martial artist who is fighting Jake Paul, the shy and retiring Jake Paul, who I encountered when I hosted the press conference for Triller Fight Club. And that was intriguing, to say the least. That was an intriguing experience. So we're going to be visiting with them on our next show. Trip, I appreciate it as always. Glad you're back from vacation.
And thanks again for the jet. Do we want to have a contest where some of our readers who maybe the next great question gets to use the Al Bernstein family jet sometime? Yeah,
I think I'll offer that up for sure. Yeah.
Okay,
if it's got to be a really good question, though. So,
okay.
All right, we thank you for joining us. Thanks to Regis Prograis for being our guest, and we'll see you next time.